He'll let you know when to start.
Oh, I thought he did.
Okay.
Now we're good.
Action.
All right. This time is going to work. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Committee on Thursday, October 16th, 2025. I'll now call the meeting to order at 5:07. Lisa, can you please take the roll call?
Member Melissa Bates?
Here.
Member Getz?
Here.
Member Johnson?
Here.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Here.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates? Absent? Thank you.
Melissa, since you're closest to the flag, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see. Can I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda as presented?
I motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Having heard a motion and a second to approve the order of the agenda, Lisa, would you please take a roll call vote?
Member Melissa Bates?
Approve.
Member Getz?
Approved.
Member Johnson?
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Approved.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates? Absent.
We will now move to consent items. Lisa, can you introduce this item?
Items on consent are typically routine and will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the committee on any consent item on the agenda, which has not been pulled by the committee for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes.
We'll start with any in-person public comments. Does anybody care to address any of the items on the consent agenda? Have anyone on Zoom? I see no one on Zoom. Any committee members have any items they would like to pull? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve consent items.
Motion to approve. I second.
Having heard a motion and a second to approve the consent items, Lisa, would you please take a roll call vote?
Member Melissa Bates?
Approve.
Member Getz?
Approved.
Member Johnson?
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Approve.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates? Absent.
Since all consent items passed, please remind the applicants in attendance that their item was approved. If there are any applicants in attendance, your item was approved. We will now move to public communications for non-agenda items. Lisa, can you introduce this item?
This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to address the committee on items that are not on the agenda. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes and may speak only once. State law does not allow the committee to discuss or act on issues not on the agenda except to briefly respond or to ask staff to follow up on such items.
We'll start with any in-person public comments first. Our only public in attendance appears to have just left. Do we have anyone on Zoom? We'll now move to the discussion items. Can staff please introduce item 4A and provide the staff report?
Discussion and direction on proposed sign ordinance revisions, Title 11, Chapter 13, and Mr. Castillo will be making his presentation.
Are there any questions of staff?
I got to do presentation first.
Actually, I have one. We're talking about the revisions to the sign ordinance, correct?
Or part 3, yeah. So I'm going to do a brief presentation, then we can.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll do a brief presentation, then jump into
Okay.
questions. Yeah. All right. So this is our draft sign ordinance part 3. So again, just going over some project background, we did receive direction on proceeding the sign ordinance amendments on March 13th. In June, we met to discuss processing and temporary signage. In August, we reconvened and discussed permanent signage. So this is actually the final of the 3 parts. This is going to discussion of non-conforming signage and definitions. So again, the basis for the amendments of the draft and sort of this process of just going through section by section is to streamline regulations to make it easier for businesses to get signs approved, and we've already discussed that as part of permanent signage and processing. clarifying regulations, so that will be this section essentially. Create content neutral regulations, which is again the basis of a lot of our temp signs and permanent sign proposed changes. And then maintain aesthetic quality. Again, that's more of the nuts and bolts that we previously discussed. And then create a set of objective standards. So the last of what you're seeing this evening is sort of the shortest part, but is also very helpful to ensure that we are getting it correctly. So the first part is we've recrafted our non-conforming sign section. So originally, our non-conforming sign section included unsafe sign and abandoned signs. We kind of broke it out on its own. And for those that don't know what a non-conforming sign is, it's basically applies to signs that have been legally permitted. So essentially an action that you just did today, at your consent items, you've legally approved these signs, but does not meet our codified regulations. So for example, with the signs that you just proved this evening, if they don't meet the new elevation standards of this new code that we're proposing, that is essentially is a non-conforming sign. So it has been approved, but it just doesn't conform to our standards. Our non-conforming signage section we are proposing to change will allow for some modifications, but they are very minor. So basically, it's the allow for change out of signage copies. So if it's got the plastic sign, they can just change in and change out. Again, allows for maintenance of it, but it also outlines now a prohibited modification to non-conforming signage. So again, our old code just had verbiage, no more, no less. This time we're trying to outline what you can and can't do. And there have been a couple occasions of signs that have come up over the last year with this DRC body that has discussed non-conforming signs, and we've advised you not to ask for certain changes simply because that would change the conformity, and then they'd have to come to conformity. This ordinance also eliminates language to require non-conforming signs become conforming after 1 year of adoption, and the year of adoption was June 12th, 1980. I wasn't even born yet, but it's okay. I read that, I'm like, ooh, okay. Hey, my mom was pregnant with me. Does that count? Anyways, but it eliminates that language. And again, what we're just basically trying to simplify it and say, look, you're either conforming or you're non-conforming. It's as simple as that. Businesses have basically spent money on these signs, and so to ask them to conform, especially after a year, it's an undue business expense. So we'd rather just have it clean, a very clean cut case where it's okay if it's non-conforming, but you've actually gotten approved, leave it up. We're okay with that. So anyways, that sort of summarizes our non-conforming signage section. The second section is the abandoned signage. So again, now this sits on its standalone, on its own. Our previous abandoned signage section had a discussion about penalties and interest and all this other fun stuff, which is great. But it doesn't tell me how long an abandoned sign needs to be considered abandoned. That's kind of like very basic. And so we've added a shot clock essentially. So what this means is a business goes out of business for whatever reason, and they leave their signs up. And you sometimes see that the sign's up for about a good 6 months and they're just there, yet you see the for rent sign. We're actually basically saying now at 6 months or 180 days, we can then contact the landlord to say, hey, you got an abandoned sign. Can you please take that down? And it basically also gives it also provides a time frame for city staff, because right now we give approximately either a month or 14 days. It becomes very clear, 10 days. That's it. It's codified 10 days. So whoever takes my chair afterwards or the code compliance officer, it's easily trainable. It's codified. It's in there. It provides a shot clock. It's good practices. The unsafe signage has been condensed. What we have been doing is we remove penalties and fines that are inconsistent with the municipal codes. What that means is our sign section has penalties and fines in there, and that's really inconsistent with what we have in Title 3. We've already kind of outlined that. Our city attorney and their staff, they've done a great job of modifying and bringing up to date our fines and penalties. we want to be consistent with that and not have sort of a different set of penalties with that, because again, that's sort of double the work. They've already been paid good enough money to do it for us, so I just defer to them. And then again, as I said, illegal signage, it now has timeframes established. So again, we talked about, the old code talks about illegal signage, but doesn't really define it. And now we're giving it a time frame, 10 days. You know, you have an illegal sign, it's 10 days. If you have signs on city property, which is essentially our right of way, or you put up a sign on our property, we've had people do that, by the way. We put up signs on our property in our parks. We can immediately remove those. And so again, we're just being very sort of consistent on how we do code enforcement, and giving city staff those timeframes that are very consistent throughout, to let the public know that, hey, if you have an illegal sign, if an abandoned sign, the code specifies what actions need to take place and when. So at the end, we did eliminate a couple sections. The sign plan section, that actually was eliminated, but that's actually got remorphed into our sign program and moved up to procedure. So we've actually already discussed that. And again, as mentioned earlier, we eliminated our enforcement and penalties section. The definition section, obviously, that's kind of self-explanatory. The definition sections have pretty much wiped out most of our old definitions. A lot of our old definitions were contained non-objective standards, so we're modernizing our definitions. We're making sure the definitions, are there and are clear and concise, and provides city staff sort of that latitude to define what is and what's not a sign. So again, the step 3 was the easiest part. However, this part is what's considered the easiest part, but it still needs a little bit of cleanup. So again, what are your tasks for this evening? Provide comments to us, provide directions or modifications, and ask questions. It's as simple as that. The next steps, the hope is to take your comments. We've already made a lot of those changes and package this up to the Planning Commission for next month, so that they will do something similar, but they'll do it in one night versus your 3 sort of meeting approach. And if they ask for it to be continued, we'll obviously continue it. But they have a couple more weightier things on their docket over the next couple months. So, but again, take it to the Planning Commission, get some input from there, repackage this in a sort of better package, and then very similar to what we've done with short-term rentals, take it to the council, get their input. Once the input's all done, they'll vet it. Our city attorney will vet it one more time, make sure we got it right, and then it'll actually come back to this body for recommendation, and then go to Planning Commission for recommendation, and finally City Council for adoption. So it is something that we are looking forward to help revise our sign ordinance. So with that, I'll turn it over to the DRC for any questions.
Any questions from the committee?
I have some questions, maybe just one.
Can you
Raphael?
turn your
It is.
microphone
It's
on?
on,
Okay.
yeah. Raphael, what are the teeth in the enforcement on illegal signs, penalties, and how does that work?
So it's per our adopted fee schedule. So on I believe the first initial, again, it's written notice, 10 days to bring it down, et cetera. And then typically we do have standard operating procedures where we actually do ask a second time and a third time. But after the fourth time, it becomes a fine, and that fine is listed out in our fee schedule, and that the first fine is $100. So some people balk at that fine, but again, the way it's outlined, it's sometimes that per day we can ramp it up, and we have had a couple businesses where we were fining per instance that they've had illegal signs out.
In the instance of an abandoned business or closed business or signage, the fines would probably have no effect, except would they be fined against the landlord?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the city would never physically go and remove or adjust the signs.
That is private property. That would be considered a taking.
And the penalties for this, the penalties for the infractions, as you said, are based on civil code,
It's based on our adopted fee
not a
schedule.
separate section for the signage.
Correct. Yeah. So currently it's kind of melded. Currently it's melded in together. It now will kick back out to our penalties section instead, which allows a little bit more latitude in terms of administrative citations and other things. Dave, did you want to chime in on that, or if I explained it correctly?
No, I think you've explained it correctly. The one thing that we might have the power to do to remove a sign is if there were something that was unsafe or constituted a hazard, we may have the ability to abate a nuisance summarily and actually go on the property. There are ways to do that I've done with other types of imminent hazards, but if it's just a non-hazardous sign, we would obviously go through the process of trying to convince the property owner first and then impose the fines as necessary.
I had a question on that, on the unsafe portion of it. Who decides whether it's unsafe or when it becomes unsafe? Is there somebody designated to do that, or anybody walking by can say that's unsafe?
So essentially, it follows our typical code compliance avenues, where you submit a code enforcement complaint, or our code compliance officer notes it, opens up an investigation. If obviously as they're hanging electrical wires, the building official would then designate the ability to the code compliance officer to write a letter and deem it obvious. Fire can do that as well. But there is a process that is followed, and we do specifically. This is why we have code compliance in our department to do that.
One last question on a similar topic. It says they have 180 days to remove any abandoned sign. Seems like a long time to me. I mean, 6 months of an abandoned building or a sign for an abandoned building seems like a lot of time to do it. Is there a shorter period of time that could be considered?
180 days is a standard. I believe we can shorten that up to 90 if you would like. We most certainly can.
I would suggest 90 days. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels.
I agree.
All right. Wave the magic wand and make it 90. So,
I mean, it seems like to have a sign sitting for 6 months in front of an abandoned building is a long time. So I think 90 days would be a lot better.
yeah, and again, we're just establishing good practice and procedures. Most municipalities have 180 days, but considering that, especially most of our signage is in our village, we want to have our best image forward. So that does make sense.
Any other questions or comments from committee?
What about like signage that's getting worn down and the paint's chipping and things are just not looking too good? They're shabby. Is there, I guess, penalties for that?
Yeah, there is a section actually for that, for the maintenance section. We discussed that earlier in part one. It's a part of our procedures. Signs are to be maintained in good condition. We do have a couple signs specifically in the village that look a little deteriorated. I'm going to use deteriorated. And that's and part of it's to no fault of the business owners, because again, as I've stated before, whether you like it or not, signs are typically like the last thing on a business owner's plate. It's everything else is they're trying to get it done, from permitting to TIs, you name it. So signs are usually the last one, even though you would think logically you want your brand to come out first. But that's just the nature of the beast. So sometimes folks just don't really do their due diligence in terms of the materials, which is why this code is a little bit different. This code does call out sort of a higher end quality of materials that need to be utilized in the first place. So that part will hopefully solve itself. But again, we live in a beautiful community. There's lots of sunshine, and the sun can really do a number on signs, as well as other catastrophic weather events.
And again, it's clearly stated who has the authority to determine that this sign needs to be repaired or replaced or whatever.
Yeah, again, unfortunately, that would fall to myself. But again, it's a community. So, we take code complaints, we'll go out and take a look at it.
Yeah.
And that's really where it generates, is our complaints. And this is why we do have code compliance. And so there's a reason we don't want to put our heads down, particularly when it comes to the village, because again, that's our economic bread and butter. And we really need to put our best foot forward, as we should,
Yeah.
because we are very much a tourist community, and we are welcoming to our tourists, and we want to make sure that they have a great ambiance and exciting place to visit.
Raphael, the last 5 pages, 42 through 47, are just basically restating a lot of the work that we had already had presented to us in the last two meetings. Is that correct? They're just
Yeah.
definitions. There's no,
It's definitions that help support the work that's been completed. A lot of those definitions have just been updated. Some of them have been carried over. Great examples like the flat silhouette cutout sign. That was just carried over from the last ordinance. Nothing has changed, but it's there. It's a sign type. It's a great definition. It's objective. So again, it just helps to define what is the verbiage that is in the code, because we do have a separate definition section in our zoning ordinance. However, those obviously are definitions for everything that's in the code. We want our sign ordinance to sort of stand on its own and be able to give it out, and that way it's packaged in there on this chapter versus being punted to a different one.
okay, so there's no action needed on the last 5 pages. It's just.
Not necessarily, no, unless there's something that's jarring that comes out, and I can explain that.
Okay, thanks.
Just the 180, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from committee? No, any in-person public comments? Since there's nobody from the public here, I assume that there aren't any. Do we have anyone on Zoom that needs to comment? It doesn't look like we do that either. We'll now move to, oops, I'm sorry, wrong thing. Public comments are now closed. I'll bring this item back to the committee for discussion. We've already had that. Does anyone have any further comments or questions? No? Nope. Do we need a vote on this?
No, again, it was informational and to get
Okay.
direction, and you've provided the direction which we need. And again, there are some things that are still noted on here in terms of from the previous meeting. We'll make those corrections as we go to the Planning Commission. But again, this item will come back in its full form. And the hope is that when we bring this item back, we'll also bring back what we call the sign handbook. So that way you can see it in a much more illustrative way. That'll definitely help the business owners figure out what they need to do signs-wise.
Will you have examples, like visual examples of each sign or?
Yeah, so the handbook will.
The
The
handbook.
ordinance will not. The ordinance,
No,
you.
just the handbook, right?
Yeah, correct. In the last meeting, you had just quick pictures. Those will remain in just the one-offs.
Okay.
The handbook will then have a little bit more illustrative pictures of, especially of
Examples.
the examples that we have here in town.
Great.
And that'll be available online?
The hope is that we adopt both the new sign ordinance and the handbook at the same time. And the handbook obviously changes as needed. But yeah, it would be available as a document online.
Any other committee member comments on any topic? City staff comments?
Is the item closed out?
Well,
What's that?
yeah,
Or you want, as the item, are we complete with the item?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are we complete with the item?
I think we're complete.
Okay.
Yeah, quick question though, Raphael, is what are next steps or what are we to look forward to in
So as
future meetings?
as I mentioned before, the next steps are it goes to the Planning Commission next, to very similar to what we've done here. But they get the caveat that we've met 3 times. So this is for now. Hopefully, if there's anything that's out there that you need and feel needs to be changed, please let us know. We package all these comments up, and then we're going to then take it to the City Council to sort of, again, introduce the topic to them, and then get any sort of last-minute feedback. From there, we'll package it out to the city attorney so they can make sure it runs through a legal buzzsaw that it needs to go through. And then we will introduce it here to the DRC as sort of a recommendation, and then to the Planning Commission. And then once those 2 bodies have recommended, we will introduce it for first reading to the City Council to get codified.
Thank you.
Nothing further? I guess we're ready to adjourn. I will adjourn
Oh,
the meeting.
we still have
5:31. But
believe we have committee member comments and then city staff comments.
city staff comment.
The committee member questions.
Yeah, we asked that. There are none.
So next one would be director's report. That'd be me.
Okay.
So as you know, we had an item from the City Council on Monday. It was for 1704 Mission. The City Council voted to uphold your help for the director's determination, as well as uphold the Planning Commission amendments, as well as that upheld the director's determination for 1704 mission. So a lot of questions. There's a lot of social media out there about, does he have to take the whole thing down? Does he got? I'm here to set the record straight. So the next steps are as follows. The applicant needs to go through what's called plan revisions, because again, there is a stop work order on the project itself. It's not because it's whimsical and too whimsy and too much half timbers, yada, 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 yada. It's actually some more serious issues from a building code perspective. There's a violation of Americans with Disabilities Act issues in terms of path of travel. There's a violations for stormwater drainage. There are violations for changes in the floor plan from the approved plan set, and other things that need to get worked out. And these are actually pretty big things. Don't let social media tell you otherwise, especially the path of travel. That is a federal law. And then stormwater, that's a state law. So these aren't things that Solvang made up on the fly. So as a part of that package, city staff reviews the revisions. We need to ensure that the colors and materials are done correctly. Make sure that whatever they revise is consistent with what's been approved. And so that will go through our department as well as building and public works. And then once that gets approved, the tag will be lifted and they'll be able to proceed forward with finishing up that project. So those are the actual next steps of the project. And then in order to remove some of the half timbers and other things, we do have to discuss that with the applicant on their approach. The amendments said essentially work with the applicant. So this is where we actually do work with the applicant to ensure all that gets completed. So again, there's a lot of work that's ahead. You won't see hammers being out there. You won't see folks working for a little bit simply because this part needs to get done and put their house in order. So the next project next door, 1704 Mission, the applicant has approached city staff there. So for those that don't know, the applicant actually doesn't own either property. The Archdiocese owns the cottages on Mission, and a separate family owns the old bank building. So the applicant is currently in negotiations to purchase that property from its current property owner. However, the applicant would like to see some cash flow come in. So the applicant is requesting a sort of phased approach to that project. And so the applicant is proposing to remove the drive-through elements and instead open up the market first with no additional construction, no new windows, no new doors, etc., which is just a simple tenant improvement. Now, if that were to come in through the door today, that would just go straight to building permit, no issues, no qualms. So we are going to allow the applicant to go to building permit under the premise that if there is any, and I do mean any, windows change out, door change out, et cetera, and they are not per the approved plan, it's coming back for an amendment ASAP. So again, we were very diligent in terms of ensuring that we don't progress and we don't want projects to stop, but at the same token, they do need to be done per what's previously approved. And in that particular project, the facades on that west side that are facing the cottages are supposed to come back to you specifically for the windows and half timbering. But again, the applicant is not proposing any new windows, any new half timbering. So it would just be a simple tenant improvement. On the docket for next month, Lisa, do we have anything? I don't think we have any applications that are deemed complete, so you might have another month off. However, we are definitely reconvening in December. So Lisa has been working very diligently on our design handbook. It's now in my hands, and we're trying to edit through some things. So we want to bring you hopefully the draft version of that handbook in December. Redline it to your heart's content, because again, this is a public-facing document, and we really want to make sure that we are conveying the message of our newly adopted objective design standards in an easy fashion, so that particularly our property owners and residents can pick it up and understand what exactly we're looking for. So with that, that's all I have.
Raphael, I have a follow-up question on the bank/deli project. So what's the timeline? He'll basically bring it in to service. He'll make it a business. What's the timeline on him complying with the exteriors while he's in business?
So if it's just a simple TI and he hasn't done anything, he'll still have, so the development permit has a 2-year lifespan essentially. So if no work has been done, substantial work has been done to pull and do the additions and everything else in the sun, the development permit expires.
Okay.
You can always ask for an extension, and this happens, especially on larger, not to say larger projects, but other projects very similar. A phased approach does happen.
Okay.
But there is that sort of time clock, so it doesn't just magically get, it doesn't get entitled and vested because he did something to the interior, didn't do anything to the exterior, and it won't work like that. So, but again, we will make it very clear to the applicant that the project isn't necessarily vested just based on doing an interior tenant improvement.
Okay.
But again, still good that to actually have a new use in there. So for a building that's sat vacant for so long.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Anything else?
All right.
Can I adjourn now? Okay, this time we're really going to adjourn at, looks like 5:37.